Act 21. As the AUF studied and probed different ideas and solutions to not only survive but to end the galactic conflicts for good, different functioning groups began to form. Some of the new groups were based on information gathering and sharing. Other groups discussed long-term scientific plans for peace. One of these groups was beginning actual testing on the controlled Illinoid Queen program. These scientists, geneticists, and engineers hid themselves in one of the outer bunkers and hashed out their ideas. They were called the Grower Group. Another group called the Pushers took it upon themselves to push information out about the ongoing battle. Containing rhetoric, propaganda, moral boosts, and battle instructions, the Army began to share a common goal and solution plan. Yet another formed group called the Wings saw to the final assembly of the single, but best hope for the AF, the Zarthon prototype ship. The model ship was now complete, and its engines were being primed for flight. The AUF troops flocked out in droves to watch the massive attack ship lift off from the soil and into the airfield of the AUF base. The ship used the bridge and forward section of a Zardos tow ship, but it was stripped, rearranged, and armored. The back section of the tow ship was removed, and Doctors Craven and Nirna designed a fast, long-range engine and maintenance chassis that housed a skeleton crew optimized for space combat. One of the most hidden groups was that of the Knife Team. The Knife Team included Jindor, Japia, General Soa, Aksama, Zykin, General Vali, and a Terralian defective named Tabor, and they all trained in a dark and dank room deep inside one of the bunkers. Jindor addressed the team. "There is a new threat. We need to expand our knowledge, strength, and battle prowess. Maybe you have witnessed or have heard about our internal kinetic energies, but did you know that the Terralian and the Creod have this energy as well, and so do the Illinoid? You can bet your asses the new guys will have it too. So we got to get our human friends to unleash this power as well. Vali, Tabor, can you give us a demonstration, please?" Vali walked out to the center of the vast training room. He did a scuttle and shuffle of his feet, cocked back, and launched an amazing ball of yellow kinetic energy. Flying and twisting down the munitions sight, it exploded the training dummy it was launched at in impressively overkill fashion. As Vali walked off, Tabor walked on the battle zone. He planted his feet and produced a massive stone made of solid internal energy brought to the surface and solidified. He held the boulder above his head with both hands before launching it at another target dummy. When it hit, it crushed and crashed the dummy from impact. It then exploded in a small but lethal burst, much like a grenade, sending the onlookers seeking shelter from the falling debris. After hours of discussion on the subject of kinetic, internal energy, and several demonstrations, the warriors were now in test phase. Aksama sat like a sponge and absorbed every single word and motion of the day. She asked Zykin to join her in the corner. Act 22. Aksama studied her hands over and over, all while trying to transfer chi from her dantian through her body and into her hands. This is not impossible, you know. All the records of psychics, levitators, mind readers, and people who can bend spoons were tapping into this energy all along. The human body is made up of fluids and fats, making it an excellent conductor, and the human body and mind also operate on a series of powerful electrical and chemical reactions to complete daily tasks. There is indeed a hidden power here. We just need to bring it out, she said quietly. A few minutes after that, Jindor leapt onto the test field, taking his stance and beginning a kata. He kicked and launched a Creod kick shot, setting a dummy on fire. He then turned and shot 2 Zardos blast balls, destroying 2 other targets. Another kick and turn, and he built up a large Terralian bomb boulder, which he heaved mightily, crushing 2 more of the stoic practice dummies. Flipping to his final stance, Jindor unleashed the most mysterious of all the new powers, the Illinoid Torch Hand, a fiery blast that engulfed the final dummy in a wall of fire and flame. Afterward, all knew that any of these powers could be attained, learned, and mastered. A proximity alert put an immediate end to all training. It was now time for the final strikes of the war. Xenato's ships pressed past the proximity sensors as they attacked the Illinoid and Terralian vessels. The Illinoid maneuvered to an outside defensive position, leaving the Terralians exposed yet again. The move exposed the Terralians, but it also enabled the Illinoid to fight back, which they did with horrible veracity and effectiveness. Jindor was asked to pilot the new prototype ship. He took on a crew of Soa, Vali, and Tabor. Giapia was ordered to fly the cannon cruiser, and Zykin and Aksama the blade wings. All other ships and craft lined up in front of the flagship, and all took to the stars, poised for an epic battle. As the proto-ship exited the atmosphere, the AUF began to fire. It was agreed that fire would be concentrated on the Turalian ships since they were in closer range and in a less defensive position. No doubt using this same strategy to limit enemy numbers, Zanato fired on the already wounded Turalians as well, devastating a third Turalian command ship. Only one of the 4 Turalian ships was operational. As the AUF flew beyond their position, Tabor begged the AUF to spare the crippled ship, and this tactic was only agreed to after he was asked to negotiate a Turalian surrender. Strike 1 victory to the AUF. The Turalians were now out of the fight. Their leaders were immediately rushed to be debriefed and decommissioned. Their troops and weapons were to be confiscated, processed, and sent to storage. Act 23. The Illinoid pulled to the outskirts of the battle. While Zanato's fleet took center stage, they maneuvered into a classic attack formation and cut their engines. Huge panels of Zanato's fleet opened up on each ship, and thousands of large battle robots with mysterious beings on their back began to fill the battle space. Wasper warriors, Raptorators, and Zerkarts attacked the new robo-warriors. Most attacks were dodged or deflected, but when one of the monstrosities was struck, his vile cargo was revealed for the first time. A massive warrior, dark blue in color, stood ready for battle with a base in karate and lightning energy. These new warriors began to carve a notch in the AUF advancement. The free-for-all began to destruct the 3 fleets. Parts and pieces began to be blown off. Smoke and debris clouded the battle space. In a move of genius, Jindor maneuvered behind the Illinoid, forcing them to take the brunt of Zanato's attack. Due to the attack from both sides, the Illinoid were quickly crippled. 2 of their 3 ships were disabled, and the third began to drift out of the battle completely. The Zarthons readjusted back to the center of the battlefield directly in front of the Zanato formation. The Kriod ships, still towing their massive shields, guarded the Zarthon proto-ship, and now all the AUF troops pointed their weapons down the field at their new enemy. Because of the success of the ground campaign and the super defense of the Kriods, the AUF stood on even ground when facing the 5 ships of Zanato. Zanato yelled with rage and commanded an all-out attack on the AUF. The AUF was happy to respond as they unleashed a thick fog of blasts, bullets, missiles, and bombs, smashing and incinerating the self-labeled Warrian front lines. But as more and more AUF troops flew in, more Warrians poured out of their ships to halt the AUF progression. The Warrians were a horrible foe, just as bad if not worse than the Illinoid. Derived from the bugs themselves, the new warriors had half the strength of the Ill, but twice the intelligence. Each one an elite warrior, armed with the latest training and weapons. As they began to dominate the battlefield, an obvious lack in AUF troops was becoming apparent. Upon seeing this, Jindor ordered his knife team to assign a skeleton crew to pilot the ships and all warriors to join the fight. The battle intensified. The Warrian fleet blew past the crippled Illinoid. The Illinoid still blasted a random shot here and there, but the girth of their weapons and troops had been thinned dramatically. The Warrians pressed and began to push the AUF back. Each troop tried with all his might, but the Warrians were too powerful. They all fought on the massive outer hull of one of the disabled Illikos ships, using the huge body of the ship as a makeshift battleground. Act 24. Each blast got closer and closer until all of the AUF troops were defending. Instead of attacking, troop blast followed by destroyer blast, then followed by ship blasts, the Warrians had completely overwhelmed. The AUF General Jarong, Giapia, Tabor, and Vali were already lying face down in the debris, while General Soa hardly stood up straight and had no fight left in his body. A mob of Warrians closed in on him. Jindor stood in front of his own squad of Warrian warriors, and they were closing on him too. Zykan looked up and saw the Warrian ships blasting back the AUF line with an overwhelming barrage of aggression, momentum, explosions, and twisting metal, and in that moment, time stopped. Everything went white and silent, and all was still. Zykan closed his eyes and saw Anriata. He saw the small Zarthon children in the woods, and he saw the desperation on Jindor's face. He saw Aksama leaping and jumping from enemy to enemy in a violent rage. He then thought he saw faint streams of light or energy coming from Jindor and Aksama and Vali and even some downed Warrians, even from the crippled Illikos ship. Zykan exhaled within a deep calm as he slowly and fearlessly stepped toward the threats. The ground, the ship, began to shake. As his courage grew and his steps continued, the cosmos clapped behind him. GalaxieS recorded all on Axama's two-way interface, noting the physiological and atmospheric changes down to the degrees of temperature fluctuations and the electromagnetic field variances. Suddenly there was cosmic and tectonic ripples as the Earth, the Zagon fragment, and space debris shifted and buckled. Zykon's energy continued build until a second silence came. Then the blinding white sky split and a meteor zoomed into the battlefield and crashed down with an incredible force and an even more incredible explosion, decimating an immense amount of Warians and Warian hardware. The projectile had struck Zykon directly. As the fiery explosion subsided and the flames recoiled, it was clear that a new being stood where Zykon once did. With a blink of an eye, the new being disintegrated a vast majority of the Warians into ash with a single gaze. Axama's systems flashed off and back on again, but when they came back on, something was different. She felt odd, and her hair stood up. It was not flowing, but was still like static. She could move in the still standing time. She stared in awe for what seemed minutes as Zykon's laser gaze destroyed the enemy. Then that white realm flashed back to normal in a clap. Her powerful exosuit was fused to her body, and all her tech was in her newly formed mask. Moving was now effortless. Her strength was amplified 10, if not 100 times. This was evident as she tossed a downed Wasper destroyer to cover her friends with the ease of tossing a crumpled piece of paper. Act 25. In the second after Zykon's gaze attack, Axama telemorphed in a flash to the grower's lab. She grabbed the infantile Illinoid queen out of her incubator and blurred away again. A super bright light traveling like a relative comet blasted out from the lab and into space directly bound for the crippled Illinoid fleet. It was the new Axama, or Zaya, and somehow she knew that the being that had replaced Zykon was now Zane. As she beaconed past the new battle zone and approached the Illinoid vessels, she launched 2 bombs of energy with long tails. Both trailed down until they impacted the port and stern ships, exploding on them and knocking them completely out of commission. Boarding the last standing Illinoid command vessel, Zaya cradled the infant queen in her arms. Hordes of Illinoid troops poured out of every corner of the ship, attacking fiercely. Zaya, with her mighty galactic power, was able to fight off the horde by placing the child on her back, and using the cosmic spear she headed to the throne room. Upon entering the throne room, the Illinoid queen stood to face Zaya, who still carried the grub. With child on her back and spear in her hands, Zaya cut, swiped, dodged, and parried as she battled the immensely powerful Illinoid queen. The queen was a vicious monster, with a crown-shaped headdress, long sleek body, and connector tubes to the room around her, indeed the throne itself, and she used all her horrid power to upheave the infidel, who had invaded the room. Suddenly Zaya saw her chance, and knocked the queen to the ground with a powerful shoulder shove, and when the queen hit the ground, Zaya cut the connector tubes, leapt in, and planted the new baby Illinoid queen onto the throne. With a minor rustling of her tiny arms, the new queen halted the Illinoid troop attack. The old and injured queen was quick to rush to her side and leaned in as if listening to her whisper commands. The power conduits and network lines, which glowed with a fiery orange, now had a calming blue tint. The same color washed over the eyes of all the bugs, and it was apparent their attack phase had ended. The last remaining Illinoid ship flew away from the battle and far beyond the Zagon fragment. The AUF cheered and roared in victory. All the while Zanato called desperately to his missing troops. Running frantically from station to station, he ordered all his men back to his main ship. Zanato shouted, "You dared to defy me, fools! Line up the ships for our final assault." As Zanato's ships lined up in their attack formation, a glimmer of light shone behind the AUF ships. And as the light grew closer, all were able to make out the last but strong Turalian ship moving in to join the AUF fleet. "Your ragtag fleet doesn't stand a chance. Renounce the Zardos and surrender both worlds to me or die," screamed Zanato. Act 26. Suddenly there was another light on the horizon behind the AUF, and as this light source got close, it was shockingly witnessed to be the last and fully operational Illinoid ship. Lined up now ship for ship, the AUF had the Zarthon ship, 1 Illinoid ship, 1 Turalian ship, and 2 Creod ships, indeed a motley crew, but a strong and diverse force to face down the criminal Zanato. The communication frequencies squelched with interference as Zanato was about to speak again, but before he could, the Illinoid ship thrust itself directly into Zanato's lead ship. Zaya ignited a fiery aura around herself, and morphing into the comet-like form again, She flew from the bridge of the Illinoid ship and blasted straight through both Warrior ships on the right, destroying them instantly. And in a blink of an eye, she returned to the Illinoid ship. Using some of the same powers as his counterpart, Zane telemorphed between the two Warrior vessels of the left, and by simply raising his hands between them, the two massive ships were destroyed with great galactic, kinetic blasts from his palms, reducing the once impressive ships to scrap metal. Zaya was quick to gain entry to the interior of the last remaining Warrior ship. She took with her a huge number of elite Illinoid warriors, and with their help the Warriors were now easily overwhelmed. Dr. Franks and P-71 were found to be destroyed from the prior impact, but Riton and Zanato were there somewhere. While the groups of troops fought it out, Avak Riton turned to face Zaya. The dragon suit increased Riton's strength and speed by many factors. This was demonstrated as he tore into Zaya with shocking speed and veracity, as if having studied dragon attack tactics. Riton thrusted himself high into the air, where he hailed down a rain of energy attacks, striking Zaya through and through. Then swooping low to a grapple attack, he held her against the wall, where he pulverized her head again and again into the metal structure. At the same time, Zaya was being ripped apart by the other claws in the shoulders and back area, until Riton tossed the mangled heap to the side and turned his attention to Zane. The advanced new infantry with the Illinoid regiments added were quick to aid Zaya. As they gathered around the battle space, Zane put his hand up to block 1-2 from intervening. The unknown potential for this new galactic power was limitless as Zaya began to reanimate. Parts and pieces reformed, and great rips and tears mended. Her skeletal began to straighten, and it was known that an attack which would have destroyed any ordinary human is having no effect on Zaya. Riton leapt to attack again, but was quickly grounded by Zaya this time, as she floored him and sent him tumbling into the background with a brutal elbow. Just as Riton was able to stand, Zaya struck him again and again in a devastating series of single strikes. Zaya knocked Riton to and from room to room through solid walls, and then, sliding to a stop in the ship's bridge corridor. Riton did not fare as well as Zaya did in the exchange, and where Zaya was able to heal and mend, Riton's human frailty was obvious. Zaya called out, "The bridge is accessible, go quickly." Act 27. Zane rushed through Zaya's opening, and many still standing Warriors tried to stop him, but they were quickly taken down by Illinoid infantry. While Zaya was distracted, Riton advanced on her position and built up his most powerful blast within point-blank range. When she turned back to her adversary, Riton released the massive dragon's aura attack, a supersized fireball. Zaya wound her body back, peeled off her mask, and released an even stronger breath attack, the beckoning beam, a solid thin ray of white energy that blasted straight through Riton's fireball, going down Riton's suit's throat, down his throat, and stalled for a second before, boom, exploding in a compact but completely eradicating and enveloping flash of energy, smoke, and debris. Zanato stood on the balcony just outside his ship's bridge. As Zane walked through the blasted opening, he saw his challenger on his visage. To Zanato's left was a massive Warrior equipped and armored in royal fashion. Zane deduced that this must be the Warrior general. Riton had fitted the general with an exo-suit of immaculate quality, no doubt making a vicious warrior even more dangerous. Hitting the floor with a thud and drawing his incredibly large iron rapier, the general began to power forward toward Zane. Zane planted his feet and stood strong, but the Warrior general was far too powerful even for a galactic master such as Zane. As the general struck Zane blade to blade, the metal tinged and quivered, and Zane was sent flying back. Readjusting from his vicious attack and charging in again, Zane was still down and exposed, his back to his attacker. As the general swung, Zane's aura blocked the blow with impenetrable force, recoiling the general skidding backwards. Zane got to his feet and planted them yet again, and the general attacked yet again. But this time Zane was able to dodge the attacks, then block the attacks. Then he was able to block and parry, and finally he counterattacked until he was initiating every thrust of the sword battle. And backing the Warrior general in the corner, he struck him down with a downward strike sword combo to the inner thigh, the midsection, and finally a deep and fatal swipe across the chest. Zane stood and faced Zanato. As he stepped forward, the ceiling lit up and split, and just as the incredible cosmic or galactic powers that came down and transformed Zykan into Zane, the energy balled up in front of the figure and shot back into the sky. Zykan was back to himself, but his resolve was the same. This was the final act of this conflict, and that was known through his eyes. Just as Zane's essence was flung back into space, Zaius was too. Axama stood undistracted with her arms crossed about to watch the battle, and her galactic energy whisked away into the starry sky. Act 28. Zanato laughed in a cowardly pretentious howl as he attacked Zyke with the family blade, the Galaxy Fist. Zyken molded his Aenean rapier to look exactly like the Galaxy Fist, and a hail of sparks rained out when the two blades collided. Zyken was able to completely dodge every attack from Zanato. It was almost as if he were twice as fast. Becoming frustrated, Zanato launched a series of energy weapon blasts in conjunction with his sword attacks, in desperation to strike Zyken, but it was of no use. Zyken sheathed his Aenean rapier and fought back bare-handed. He was able to strike Zanato almost at will and land a counter combo after nearly every one of Zanato's attacks. Still in desperation mode, Zanato began to try and destroy the ship around them. He started charging a huge beam attack into the floor of the vessel when Zyken closed the gap. Zanato swung his sword wildly. Then he threw his signature back-spinning kick to the midsection, the same move that killed Anriata. Zyken dodged the kick and landed a simple front roundhouse to Zanato's midsection, and without another moment's hesitation, threw and landed a powerful cross-punch right in the jaw of Zanato. Zanato tumbled, flipped, and rolled backwards through walls and consoles about 30 feet as he carved a trench in the floor. When Zanato stood up from the devastating punch, he plunged the sword into the floor. There was a damaging aura of Warian lightning attacking him. Then the lightning turned to Illinoid flames and he burnt up. But then, he was blown back by a Terralian boulder. He was brought back to his feet again by a vicious Creod kickshot until it all coalesced in a small Zarthon fusion sphere that embedded itself into his forehead, causing the same kind of compact and disintegrating explosion. That destroyed Rattan. Zanato was no more. As his ashes fell all around the ships, Bridge Zyken grabbed the sword from, being lodged in the floor, and placed it on his back, and all factions of the combined infantry began to roar with victory cheers. The war was over. Zyken slid down the wall next to where a sitting Axama was. Both let out a relieving sigh. It took a long time, nearly 2 years, before peace settled in all the systems of the Aximus mega-galaxy. The AUF set up a strong, lasting government and scattered bases and recruitment centers throughout the known worlds. Axama volunteered to teach and begin recruiting and training from the galactic capital of Zerth. Jindor made a nice quaint home on the fragment near the forest, and all his men settled near his camp. Most of the former Knife team members, including Zyken, continued to serve as lasting members of the AUF. Act 29. The Illinoid were given back their star system, which was just near the old Zagon system in the galactic east. The Illinoid were integral and important members of the AUF, and their place in the AUF was an honored one. The Illinoid Queen was programmed to find natural successors as she finished her programmed life cycle, and the threat of them ever being ravenous again was gone forever, as this queen was engineered to be more human than the Illinoid had ever been before. The Warians were given an engineered star system that was seeded and spawned randomly by planet engineers. They were given the keys to a completely new world and its many sisters to explore and catalog and call their own. Nestled between the Zerth system and the Creod systems, the Warians were eager to begin their interplanetary settlements. The Creods were given an engineered planet system that closely resembled their original home, a large body in the galactic west region. Their genetic vaults were opened, and their planets were seeded with all of the life forms they had come to love and rely on. The Terralians were able to make vast improvements on their home worlds, and with planetary engineering of their own, they made a paradise from once trash-covered polluted worlds in the galactic north. They too brought back their plants and animals, and agreed to be a more independent resource-based society. People came to grips with seeing the Zagon fragment in the Earth sky. The Zagon planetary engineers placed the fragment in an orbit that ensures the planetoid is above the oceans, or skimming dusk or dawn so as to not interfere with our sunlight. On some nights and in some afternoons, the fragment is a sought-after object of beauty. As it beacons in the distance, it is a forever reminder that we are a joined force throughout at least this galaxy, in the rarest closeness, and only when the opposite rotations of both Earth and the Zagon fragment position ocean over ocean. When two sets of small islands on both worlds align, a co-mingling of species occurs. Zagon whales and Earth whales drift from ocean to ocean, and fish, crustaceans, birds, and even waters teeming with life do the same. They intertwine and join our two natural worlds forever.